Hey, welcome back to the Breakthrough Creative. I'm John, your host. I'm really glad you're here. This is where we talk about the business of art and the art of business. About a month or so ago, I was speaking with a friend who has a career outside of art, but who is also a really skilled artist. And he was considering making the leap from his current profession to the arts. So we're just having a discussion, we're messaging back and forth. And, I'm feeling for him because there are just a lot of things to weigh when you make the change, when you make the jump to full-time professional artist. For those of you listening to this, think about your art and then think about how many different forms of art there are. You might be an illustrator, you might be a portrait painter, you might be what you consider a fine artist, you might be a musician, a violinist, you might be a brand engineer, a writer, author. There are so many different forms of creativity, and a lot of us are pretty good at our creative arm of what we do. And maybe where we struggle a bit is in applying our skills to the market. What I mean by that is how are you going to make money off of your art? I see so many talented visual artists out there just because I'm attuned to that world, maybe more than music or writing, but I read all kinds of stuff, great stories and articles and whatnot, and I listen to great music and I see dancers and performers and, people making movies, and there's just incredible skilled people creating masterful work out there. The market has been maybe bigger than it's ever been to pay artists to make a living. And at the same time, maybe it's never been more confusing. Like there are just so many opportunities, you don't know where to start. That's a challenge, right? Because when you make that transition from, let's just say, when you make that transition from a non-creative job to full-time creative, there are challenges, right? Because now you've got to sell yourself. You've got to create the right art for the right niche, the right client. You got to find those clients. Not to mention, you got to figure out how to charge, what to charge, how to collect your money, how to send an invoice, right? Some of this stuff you guys may know really well and some may not, or maybe we're in the middle, but all of this stuff is very real. And then you've got health insurance to worry about. There are all of these real world cares to consider. And I'm here to tell you it's doable. You can do it. It's not easy, but you can do it. And when you think about it, is it easier to work a job for the rest of your life that you don't really like for the insurance, for the money? It used to be 20 years ago, people would maybe work their job their whole life, and by 20 years ago, I think that's when people realized that it was changing, that you weren't going to work your career and your job in one spot, one space, and be guaranteed a pension for your whole life. It just doesn't work like that anymore. So you've got to look out for yourself. I think along the way, while you're watching out for yourself, you can watch out for other people and you can take care of your clients. And so in no way am I suggesting that you need to become sinister and underhanded and, do anything that is low. Don't do that. Do things well, do them by the book. Be a good person, right? Be an upstanding, upright citizen, creative, and you're just going to make everything look better for all the rest of us creatives, okay? Don't worry about the people who are taking shortcuts. Shortcuts usually end up cutting back at you. So I would just look for efficiencies, but do things the right way, do them well. You're in this for the long game, and you're not throwing up a tent. You're building your career with bricks, all right? Bricks that are going to keep you protected from the storms that are going to come. So how do you get started in this whole thing? As my friend and I were discussing this, I said, you know what? I'm going to write something here to you, and I'm going to share some of what I sent to him. Here's a couple of thoughts on a career as an artist, like how to actually make the transition. These aren't absolutes, okay? But it's realistic advice. So do with it as you will. So the first thing to know, 97% of the time, corporate money is better than an individual's money. Now, it spends the same. I'm not talking about like the actual dollar that comes from them. What I'm suggesting is, and I pulled that number out of the air because it seems to be my experience that most of the time, 97% of the time, you can make it 95%. And again, this isn't an absolute, right? But most of the time, corporate money is better than individuals' money. Why is that? Well, corporations need to spend money to make money. So they're actually investing into their own business when they hire you to do work for them. And the expectation is that they're going to get a return on their investment in whatever you create for them. They spend money to make money. That's really important to know. Individuals generally spend money to enjoy life. Art, gifts, meals out, or they spend money to solve problems. The air conditioning unit goes out. You want a new wooden floor. You need new windows. You've got medical expenses. So it's similar, right? Because corporations are hiring you to solve a problem. But generally, an individual isn't going to hire you for your creative skill set to fix the air conditioning. Or, boy, this wall, what are we going to do with this wall? It's got no painting on it. Got to get a $10,000 painting. Now, you may have clients like that, but I think they're few and far between. I mean, that's been my experience. So think about that. Individuals who are going to hire you to do some work are less likely to spend thousands of dollars on your art. I mean, that's the general case, right? Most people, if I see people doing original characters for somebody, you're at a couple of $100 US. And my experience with corporate has been they need to get something done, and maybe it's going to be a $1,500 project. They don't blink an eye. Maybe somebody says, wait, can you break that down for me? And so you do that. You break it down for them. And they go, oh, okay, that's great. Go ahead and do it. And part of the reason is not only do they need it, they're spending somebody else's money, right? They're spending the corporation's money, and they've got a budget to use. And if they don't use that budget by the end of the year, then that money goes away for them and their budget shrinks. So oftentimes, clients are trying to spend their budgets so that they can maintain a certain bandwidth for themselves to be able to grow their department and not be caught having to ask for more money from their higher ups, okay? Let me give you a little story about corporate work. So I had this corporation that made product. I do a lot of product design. And I went in to do some work for them. It was a big company. I had a really good experience with my client, and they had a really good experience with me on the first go round. And then we had another good experience and another. After about a month of this, and they were calling me pretty regularly, I asked them, is there anybody else here that you think could use my services? And I said, yeah, let me introduce you to a few people. One time they even set up a meeting with me and about 6-7 people, like a full department, for me to share my work with them. And that was amazing. I was able to go in, I was able to say, hey, this is what I do, and then explain all of the arms that went with it. And so maybe this will be beneficial. I'd go in, I would show some illustrations, and then I would say, hey, it's really nice to meet you guys. For those of you who don't know me, I'm John McDavitt. I'm an illustrator and a designer, and my background is in special effects makeup. And what that means is I learned all kinds of things about design and sculpting and molding. And I ended up shifting into product development through toy design. And I found that it was very similar to special effects makeup. But while I was in toy design, I learned about injection molding and rotocasting and blow molding and all of these different kinds of ways that plastics are manufactured. So I know the limitations and the parameters around each one of those. But I could also do all the drawings for the engineers. And I could do pretty drawings for marketing, and I can do licensed work. So I can get work approved by Disney on the first or second go around. Like generally I get it through pretty quickly because I understand what they're looking for. And then I can communicate with the engineers how exactly they can keep the outside looking appropriate. You know, you want Snow White to look like Snow White, not Snow White with a big old ear coming off because an engineer needs to stick a big component in there. And, you know, I could work with engineers on the inside parts as well. And then when they got the model done, I could also do color renderings, or I could paint the actual model or airbrush it or whatever. I was able to tell them in a pitch, I guess an introductory pitch, what it is that I could do for them. And maybe another way to put it is what pain points did I solve for them? And they became a huge client. I kept on asking them, is there anything else I could do? Is there more I could do? And then I found myself providing services to them while I was learning new techniques or tools. You know, corporate money not only paid me, but helped me to survive and then to grow as a creative and as a professional. You know, when I've worked for individuals, and primarily it's been either doing a portrait or a mural, there's just so many limitations around it. Now, if you go to the right market and you find them, you have an opportunity to make more money with individuals. And it's there. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm just saying that you've got to consider for yourself what is the best way to go about your business, okay? So you got to make it work for you. And everything I say, by the way, that's up to you, right? Like you've got to figure out what works for you. All right. The second bit of advice that I had from my friend was you really, really need to diversify. You know how you hear about diversification in your finances, where people invest in a bunch of different stocks, or they're in mutual funds, where a mutual fund is made up of different companies and investments. And the idea is that you're spreading out your finances across a number of potential successes to mitigate your losses. So if you have 60% of your portfolio investment does well, it should offset the negative 40% and you come out ahead, right? So that's the idea. Well, it's the same here. It's the exact same here. You want to diversify, and you want to diversify not just your clients, but your offerings. So you heard me when I was talking about product development that I could satisfy a bunch of my clients' needs visually in a number of different areas. And if you can provide that to a client and do it well, you not only A, will be in demand, but B, you're going to be able to do a number of different things for a number of different clients. Here's how I'm diversified with clients right now. I had some concept sketch for some toy design to work on. I had multiple projects to create for a printer, doing different graphic design kind of layouts for them. I'm working on a book layout for an individual. Okay, an individual popped in, one of my 3%, and they're paying well for me to not just have illustrated this book, but now I'm doing the layout for it, and I have a freelance designer working for me on that. So now I'm making money while I'm not working, right? Because I have somebody else doing some work for me, which is fantastic. And my freelancer's thrilled because they're making money. I had 12 lifestyle shots to engineer and deliver to a client to be used in a major retailer's website. And then I had like a random caricature request, a rush, for a team of people for their boss. It was interesting because I had in there four clients I've been working with regularly for some time. I had a rando in there for the caricature, which was great. It was a great job to have pop in. And I probably completed all of that within, although the book is ongoing, all the other stuff was done within a week or so. And that's about $3,500 worth of work. On top of that, I may end up working 12 hours one day and 4 hours another day. So my schedule is kind of open for me depending on what is coming at me. And when I have downtime, I try to rest, I hang out with my family. I will, maybe read a bit or do some investing back into my skills or work on a painting or whatever. But, it's not 9 to 5, and 9 to 5 isn't even 9 to 5 anymore, right? If somebody's working salaried, it's probably more like most people are working 10 or 12-hour days if they're not also working on the weekends, right? And then you throw a commute in on that. I don't commute, I stay home. I guess most of us are these days, or maybe we're back to work. But, what you've experienced through COVID, not having to travel, mostly for the last 20 years or so, I have not had a commute. I don't miss it. So I haven't had that added expense, even though I have a car, of paying for the car, paying, gas, and on it goes. I know that I spoke about this in the first point of working with a commercial client, but here's a list of my current services, okay? Illustration in all its forms, conceptual design, so that's brainstorming. I can brainstorm, for instance, images for packaging, product development, marketing boards, PowerPoint presentations, logos, characters, caricatures, anything that somebody might need. I can be involved with helping with conceptual design as long as I understand what it is that they do. And I may, have a loose understanding of it, but I can ask questions while we're brainstorming. And sometimes if I don't understand it, I'm asking questions. It helps to clarify further because I'm an outside brain, right? I haven't experienced what it is that they do. And when you're really familiar with something, maybe you're a little too close to it, and somebody who isn't as familiar brings a clarity to it because they bring clarity through questions. But graphic design is another thing that I do. Prints, murals, mock-ups. If somebody has like a Snickers box, if you go by the cash register at Walmart or something, and there's a Snickers box there, well, the buyer at Walmart wants to see that box. He wants to see, or he or she wants to see that physical box on the shelf. So I will make up either a white box for the size, because the size is important, and send that off to the rep for the rep to give it to the buyer, who puts it on a shelf and then moves it around and figures out what they want to do with it. Or I'll do a full printout of the artwork on the box, and I'll basically put a mock-up of the box together. And it's a prototype, and then that'll go off to the rep to give to the buyer, and they decide whether they want it or not. Marketing imagery I'll do for clients, so end caps, logos, online images. So anyway, there's more than this, but you get the idea. I'm diverse. It's worked for me, and I think that's an important thing for all of us to not get cornered into a couple of things that we do, and then the market changes, or you lose a client and you don't have any other clients, or you don't. And believe me, I've had that happen to me, and it's not fun. You want to keep having a nice list of clients. All right. So then here is my third point. I guess let's take a look. First point is corporate clients are generally better than individuals. The second one is diversify your clients, diversify your skills. And the third one is you likely need to work a day job while you're getting the art business and all your contacts up and running. Unless you have some crazy thing that happened where you've got a client that popped up and they, wrote you a check for $50,000 and you can milk that for the year, you're going to need to figure out how to make that jump. It makes me think of the old game Frogger, where the frog's trying to get across, and you got to be planning to jump, but watching yourself that you're not going to run off the screen or jump on a poison or anything like that. And everything moves so quickly. You've got to know where you're at and have, maybe one foot on a foundation, if you will, while you're building your new foundation. I think that makes sense. I don't know how much more I need to go into that, other than, if you're at a job, you probably have insurance. You probably know what kind of paycheck is going to come in. You're set. You know what's going to be there. When you start to work for yourself, you don't know for sure. I mean, it may be stellar, fantastic, or it may not. I had at a point when I was 20, I made, and I'll do this as another podcast and episode in the future, but when I was 20, I made $11,000 in a month airbrushing t-shirts, and I was certain I was going to make $20,000 the next month. Well, the problem was the month I made all the money was really end of November into December, and then January rolled around, nobody was in the mall, so I made no money that month, maybe $1,000. That's pretty interesting how that all works. So I'm just going to give you some 1990s data for me when I was starting up my business. So I airbrushed t-shirts, and all the numbers I'm going to give you are like for the year. All right. I guess I'm giving it monthly here in my example, but I airbrushed t-shirts, and I would have some months airbrushing t-shirts that were huge. Obviously December was the biggest one, and then some months would be sparse. So it averaged out to be about $600 a month. So that's what, $7,200? And that was part-time. That was about 4 hours a week for most of the year. And then, getting into November, December, I'd be working 11-hour days. I worked at a toy design firm. That was a full-time job while I was doing the airbrushing as well, okay? And I was just getting into the industry, and that was about $20,000 for the year, which wasn't much, but it provided income. And my wife at the time was working, so she had the insurance, okay? And we're just young 20-year-olds at that point. And then because I was airbrushing, I ran into the owner of Badger Airbrush, and he invited me into Badger to meet with him, and he wanted to hire me on as a consultant. And that consultancy ended up averaging to be about $10,000 for the year. So this was all before my design business took off, and yet every job I did was an art-related job. I'm airbrushing t-shirts, and I'm making money, and I'm learning how to sell, and I'm improving my skills. I'm working at a toy design firm, learning the inside. I went to Toy Fair for the first time. I got to meet the owners of companies and listen to how everybody spoke to each other and how the game worked. And then I ended up with this consultancy that, paid me a certain amount of money every month, whether I did anything or not. So I had a nice base, of about close to $40,000, $50,000 on top of what my wife at the time was making. So it's pretty interesting, to make that switch. It can be very challenging. It's always very challenging. Don't think it's going to be easy, because it's just not. And you really have to set your jaw in a certain direction and be firm and go after it and desire it and take your lumps. And, you want to have a bunch of people who are in your corner, at least one or two people who are in your corner who believe in you and who can speak into you too. Really important thing. So once again, here are like my top 3 things you should do if you are going to transition into your own creative business. And that is, 1, just recognize that corporate money is probably going to be a lot better than individuals' money, individual clients, okay? You want to go after companies. 2, you need to diversify to really make it go. You got to have a number of different clients that you're reaching out to and trying to build relationships with. And you probably want to be able to have a number of different services that you can provide to them, at least a few that you're really good at. Unless you're really, really good at one, and that's the thing that's making you the money, then go do it. But if you have opportunities to serve them, do it. Do those other things as well. And then, the last thing, of course, is while you're working your day job, make the switch. I don't think you just want to pull the plug on your income and your insurance and everything that you're doing and just go cold turkey, because that could be a tough road to hoe. All right. Are these absolutes? No. Are they helpful? I think they're really helpful. I think they're wise. I think they're efficient, and I think they'll be beneficial. So I wish you the best, and not to be too obvious, you rock. I think you can do this, and I think all you got to do is go after it. There are no guarantees in life, but one thing's for sure, if you don't go after it, nothing's going to change. So for the Breakthrough Creative, I'm John McDavitt. I love artists, I love creatives, and I love it when they make money doing what it is that they do so well. So I wish you the best, and put these 3 things to use, and I think they'll be beneficial. And if you do, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Okay. All right. Be well. Cheers. See you next time.